Welcome back to the sideboard here at Grand Prix Orlando. I'm Nick Miller alongside Matt Costa. How you doing?
Pretty good. Good to be here.
Good. We have talked a lot of sealed, over the past day, but now we're going to start talking about draft. And what we're going to do is talk about each clan. And for the Jeskai clan, we have Matt Costa, who is going to tell us all about the clan and why you should play it and what you should want in each draft.
Okay.
So you've been a pretty big fan of it. You told me earlier it's your favorite three colors in Magic.
Yep.
So blue, white, red. How do you like the clan mechanic of prowess?
I think prowess is an interesting mechanic in Jeskai because typically a good Jeskai deck has a lot of tricks and spells.
Mm-hmm.
So in a way it makes your good decks better, but maybe sometimes your bad decks worse a little bit. That said, if you have tricks in hand, the added +1/+1 from prowess or some of the other abilities can just really leverage those tricks and make them even better.
So you say makes your better decks better, and your worst decks, kind of not as good. Do you find it when you have a good Jeskai deck, you just have the best deck, and if you miss, you just kind of have problems, or is there a middling deck as well?
There's definitely a middling deck. I think that in particular white is a really deep color in this format, so if you're base white Jeskai, it's pretty hard to go wrong. But more of what I was getting at is that the irreplaceable cards in the deck are the spells, not the creatures.
Okay.
So that's what you need to prioritize, and that makes prowess even better.
All right. Speaking of spells, what are the top 3 commons you're looking for when you're looking to draft this?
So sticking with the theme, from blue, I like Force Away, the bounce spell. I think the blue decks have a lot of evasion and are really tempo-oriented, and using that card when your opponent pays 5 mana to flip up a morph is just a huge blowout.
Right.
Out of white, the most important card is Feat of Resistance, which is just a really good combat trick, really good anti-removal spell, and the added +1/+1 counter usually leaves a pretty powerful threat back. So
seems to do all the things you want your Jeskai deck.
Yeah, it does everything. It's a combat trick. It's a falter. It's a removal spell. It's pretty great. And then out of red, Arrow Storm is really important. Sticking with the theme of spells, and also when you get into a race, the 4 or 5 damage to the face is just as good as having a removal spell.
Interesting. How would you say that card is better than some of your other options removal wise?
Well, I think the real critical point is 4 toughness. So that makes it better than, say, Burn Away, which can't really deal with any of the good flipped morph creatures. And in addition, stuff like Kill Shot doesn't really do the trick when you're trying to race and be aggressive, because if they're never attacking, then you don't really get to use it effectively. And if you're skipping your turn to play a removal spell, that's not what Jeskai wants to be doing.
Yeah, you're not taking over the tempo aspect and pushing the damage through if you're having to wait to use your kill spell.
Sure.
So what's your ideal Jeskai deck look like? You get out of a draft. What are the cards you really want to have in there? Creature / spell numbers,
Well, there are really 3 ideal Jeskai decks, because I think the big point of partially this format, and Jeskai in particular, is that you don't want to be even 3 colors. You want to be base 2 colors.
Okay.
So when I'm drafting Jeskai, I want to be a blue-white aggro deck with a lot of flyers, a blue-red tempo aggro deck with burn spells, or a white-red aggro deck. And obviously, the mana is pretty good. There's lots of powerful cards that you can be willing to splash. Obviously you're always going to play Jeskai Charm if you're white-red aggro. Right. You'll probably splash a Force Away, stuff like that. But for the most part, I'm looking to be a base 2-color aggro decks, and then just play the really powerful cards with my 3rd color.
Right. So you want to make sure you're 2 with the splash to give you the versatility for the other things in the clan. Okay. Where would you rank Jeskai in the 5 clans for you when drafting? In my opinion, I think it's the best. Okay.
I think the evasion tempo strategies are a way to approach this format that not all of the other decks can compete with. I think a lot of the decks are weak to flyers in particular, and if you play, sort of the normal ground stall versus ground stall game that seems to develop in this format, you're at the mercy of your opponent having some great rare that they draw 20 turns into the game, or some, blowout trick in combat. So I like sort of approaching the format from an opportunity to circumvent those ground stalls and just attack in for damage
Just
early.
fly over and
Yeah.
tempo on that. Are there any archetypes, that gives Jeskai some trouble? Have you found, or?
I don't necessarily want to play the deck against the other aggressive decks. Like maybe a white-black Mardu aggro deck might be a little bit of trouble, simply because a lot of your cards are at their best when you're ahead, and you can't always guarantee that you're going to be ahead, especially on the draw against some of the other aggro decks.
Okay.
So I think those are probably the worst matchups, but luckily if you're drafting a Jeskai deck with a lot of cheap spells, hopefully you have enough to stabilize early.
Excellent. Well, the Jeskai way sounds like a pretty strong strategy to go if you want to be aggressive. A lot of people like to be aggressive, especially as you mentioned in these formats where it's just grindy grind.
Yeah.
You can just fly blind. All right. Well, Matt, thanks for sitting down in the sideboard here with me. We're going to have all the clans broken down with notable pros and people here at GP Orlando. So stay tuned all weekend long to SCG Live.